World Hockey Sport Live, Cody Jansen with you here on 12 Ounce Sports. Monday, September 21st. Wow, summer has flown by. That includes this playoff hockey, too. We are almost done. Game 2 coming up tonight. Hey, it's World Hockey Report Live. Cody Jansen with you here. Show brought to you by MyBookie.ag. Use promo code 12OZ when signing up, and they're going to match your deposit up to $1,000. MyBookie.ag, promo code 12OZ. We got to start this, one off, a little bit of a downer. It's sad news. It was terrible news to hear. I mean, honestly, being from Mormon originally, you really feel, and the Melfort Mustangs lost one of their own. I believe he was a Lethbridge Hurricanes prospect as well. The passing of Dylan Ash, that's a tough one. I mean, being from Saskatchewan, I think anyone there would agree. It's such a small community in general, and then you bring in the hockey world. There's always connections. There's always ties. Playing in the SJ, growing up in Mormon. So, our thoughts and prayers, deepest sympathies go out to the Ash families, friends, teammates. It's a tough one. Tough way to start the show, but, just had to do our due diligence there. Mentioned Dylan. You know what? I hope that people are able to look back on this and take a look at the positive memories that do come out of people's lives and, while they were on Earth. So, moving along, we got Game 2 coming up tonight, Stanley Cup Finals. We are going to break this one down. We got a packed show. Adam Erwintrout, lead-off hitter today. Coming up in about 2 minutes' time. Kevin Woodley at 8:20. We're going to talk some goalies. This remain Goal Magazine, Canucks writer for NHL.com, as well. Then Eric Erlandson, Lightning Insider. We're going to talk Bolts. And boy, that's going to be a fun one. Looking forward to that 8:40. That interview is coming up. Adam Erwintrout, though, right away. And it's brought to you by VerberoHockey.com, the best in custom team apparel. You want the best deal? Get at us today. You want custom sublimated jerseys? You want pro stock jerseys? Best prices, best quality, VerberoHockey.com. Adam Erwintrout joins us now from the great city of Saskatoon. Trout, did you watch the U.S. Open this weekend?
Oh, yeah, it was a lot of that and a lot of football, and then Game 1 mixed in on Saturday night.
Okay, so Bryson DeChambeau wins it, obviously. What do you think you would shoot at winged foot? Like, if you were to golf winged foot, just normal, whatever, doesn't matter, like, one of those days, what do you think you would shoot? Like 130 or 140. I just think the rough there, man, like, you're taking, like, 4 hacks to get out of it. I said 150. That was my thoughts. I was like, I don't know how I would do better than 150 because it just, as you said, like, the rough looks terrible. It always looks so windy, too. The greens, like, I don't know if I'd two-putt anything even. Like, the greens look so tough.
And the par threes are, like,
240.
Par threes almost, too, yeah.
I know. If I just have a mediocre drive, I might as well just use it for it. They're all driving 330 now, plus. It's wild.
Yeah, good for him, though. Like, I mean, everybody seems to hate on him for trying to change golf a bit, but he's the one guy at the range at like 9 p.m. like the night before with the lights on, getting her going.
What a nerd. Who's your NFL team?
I'm like a Carolina / Bills Mafia guy, but...
You were a big Cam Newton guy back in the day, weren't you?
Yeah, I was happy with his performance last night, but as far as Carolina goes, just lose every game and try and get Trevor Lawrence from Clemson.
That's the plan, eh?
That's the plan, but
Lawrence is disgusting. He's so good.
Yeah, I think I've like grown into a bit of a Bills fan though too, just because every single one of their games are on CTV Toronto, and like
Bills Mafia does look fun. I'll give you that. Bills Mafia looks like an absolute blast. But hey, the Bears are 2-0, and that's all that matters. Adam, let's get into some hockey talk here. Game 1, obviously, Stars take that one 4-1. I think it was 4-1 the final, right? Empty netter. Yeah, something like that. At least close enough. Stars win Game 1. What a performance, though. I mean, Anton Hudobin was great. I would say that, the first 2 periods, he was just fine. He wasn't tested a crazy amount. He made some good saves, don't get me wrong. But in the thirds, when he really earned his paycheck. And from the most part, it was a very similar series to the last one for the Bolts, where they had a lot of the possession, they controlled a lot of the game, and they didn't really have the high quality scoring chances that you need to capitalize.
Yeah, we've kind of been saying that about Dallas this whole playoffs, really, where they played Vegas, and Vegas was notorious for it, where they'll get like 45, 50 shots in a game, but you look back at it and you're like, how many of those scoring chances really were high end? And good for Dallas. Like, I mean, they had 10 guys get points in that game, and none of them were Ben Pavelski or Sagan. So they're deep and opportunistic. And I mean, Andre Vasilevsky in that first game, he kind of looked a bit like Andre Vasilevsky of the Columbus series last year.
The nerves. I feel like, there's obviously a goal or two in there that he wants back, but he wasn't even handling the puck particularly well. And honestly, against the Isles in those final games, like, he made a couple of really good saves, but there was also a couple of chances. Like, how about when they started off overtime, or was it double overtime in that last game there, that shot from the other team's blue line? I don't know if it was Boychuk or whoever ripped it. Like, went off his glove and almost went in. Like, there's still those little bobbles and stuff where he's still young. It's, it happens. You can't be perfect. But if you want to win a Stanley Cup, those goals are tough, or you need a huge bounce back performance. Like last year, Jordan Binnington allowed a few softies, but the game after, he was dialed in. And I mean, that's when he was picking up shutouts, or he's allowing 1 on 45.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Dallas is kind of a team that Tampa hasn't really played yet, like their style where they can punch you in the face or they can blow by you with their speed. So it's interesting, and I think Dallas was a better team for the first 2 periods, and then it just seemed like they went into a bit of a shell in the third.
The biggest factor for me was the defense, and I feel that Tampa isn't quite made to face that tough, big, physical defense that Dallas can bring. Like, Dallas can really do it all. When you look at your backhand, and I've said it a million times now, we don't respect them because we don't watch enough of them. But all the way down, top to the bottom, doesn't matter if it's Heiskanen, Alexiak, Lindell, Sekera. They've got all of these guys, Klingberg. Like, they've got a very damn good decor. They got one of the best decors in the league. They're very similar to how St. Louis has been, where you're built around your defense. That's what wins championships. That's why, I mean, you've picked him throughout the playoffs. I'll tip my hat to that. I've bet against Hudobin every chance possible, and he's just shoved it up my you-know-what. But, like, man, if Dallas plays like that, it could be over in 4 or 5, honestly. Like, if Tampa doesn't have a response, and I feel like your response has to come from your so-called elite-level scorers, if they can't get that, oof.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Dallas's decor, you mentioned, they're just like St. Louis, where they're big and they take up space, and it's hard to get to the middle of the ice, and that's what Vegas struggled with, and that's clearly what Tampa struggled with in the first game. And you look at Tampa's makeup, and how many of their guys are like big guys who are going to go to the net, like 3 or 4 maybe. Like, it's tough to get to the center of the ice against Dallas, and Game 2 tonight's going to be huge.
Exactly, and we're talking with Eric Erlandson later today, and that's one of the things I want to talk with him about and ask him about is, just the additions of Maroon, Coleman, Gaudreau. I feel like they have been their more impactful players, aside from Maroon shooting the puck into Dallas's bench, which, I mean, it's a stupid move, but it's also hilarious. Like, I get it sucks, someone could have seriously got hurt, but like, hey, it's playoffs, send a message early. I think Maroon knew that probably wasn't their game to win, so I had a little chuckle out of that one. But okay, Game 2. What's the Nutrition Performance question of the day? Who's gonna be your game breaker, Adam? Who is one guy for each team? I'll give you one guy for each team that needs to show up if they need, or if they're gonna win.
I'll go with Sagan for Dallas. I think that
he's due.
Might be due. Like, yeah, he probably at this point he's due, but he's played a really good 2-way game so far. So I'll go Sagan for Dallas, and I'll go Braden Point for Tampa. He was a -3 in the first game. That's obvious answer, but if Tampa wants to win, it's got to be Braden Point.
And I hate to be that generic goaltending guy, but I'm going to say Vasilevsky for Tampa. I mean, if he allows more than two, there's no chance they win. I just don't see it happening in this series. And for Dallas, I like your Sagan pick, but I'm going to go with Jamie Benn. I just feel like he is the guy who, whenever he scores, doesn't it feel like they win? Like, he's always scoring a timely goal. Same with Pavelski. They just seem to score timely goals. And so I'll say those are my difference breaker. That's our Wits Nutrition Performance question of the day. The best workout plans, meal plans, Wits Nutrition and Performance. Now, you wanted to get into some trade talk there, Adam. I mean, obviously the Pietrangelo, however you want to say it, that's just been rumor mill city as far as I'm concerned. And I think that everyone who thinks they have a clue doesn't of where he's going to end up. But, what was your thoughts when you were reading it? I know you sent out a couple of tweets.
Well, we've been saying this since September that Justin Falk trade made little to no sense. Like,
that literally cost them signing Pietrangelo.
I know, and it's like, okay, you have Parayko on the right side at 5.5, which is a great number for him, and then you have Pietrangelo who's going to be up, and you need some money there, and then they just signed Justin Falk and traded for him and signed him before he even played a game for them. And even that trade too, like they traded Edmondson, which then meant they had to go and get Scandella for the same for the Edmondson money. So
yeah,
that was a mess. And I don't know, like it seemed like St. Louis was just banking on him taking a discount because his wife's from there and his wife's family's from there and all their kids are born there. But I don't know. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, anything short of the Yossi deal, which I believe is $9.05 million, is kind of an insult. Like, that's, if you're him and his agent, you go in there and you say, that's the deal I want. And
you probably get it. You probably get it.
He could get more than that on the open market too.
I think that 9 range is what. Yeah. He's probably around, and that's why, like, I get it. They're like, oh, we freed up cap space, though, with trading Allen. And it's like, yes, and you wasted it on Falk. Like, hope you enjoy Falk over, your best defenseman. It still makes no sense to me, and that's probably the frustrating part.
Yeah, and I mean, Jonas Brodin signs for $6 million, and St. Louis offers one of the best defensemen in the league, 7.7. So, I don't know. It's interesting. You kind of try to do the math of, like, okay, who has cap space, and like, would you go to a team like Detroit or something? Like, I mean, it makes sense, and if you're the Red Wings, it definitely speeds up their rebuild.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like, I don't know. You kind of have to figure he's got his ring already. Does he just want to go to somewhere warm? Like, does he just want to, find a way to get down to Florida? Like, I don't think Arizona's going to be picking up any huge tabs anytime soon. But, like,
they're saying Vegas, too.
Yeah, I guess Vegas would make sense. That's probably an interesting one. Anyone else, though, that you've seen that's kind of drawing some big rumors right now? Like, I haven't heard much about Taylor Hall or anything.
No, Taylor Hall seems to... Like, the Arizona thing is just ridiculous, how they're, like, saying that they're talking to him. But, like, really, you're cutting cap, but you're going to sign a guy for $8 million a year, which
they're talking to him, but they haven't paid off their rink deal. They can't even pay their black aces. They're missing meal stipends. They're missing signing bonuses. We won't get into that.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh's pretty sold on trading Matt Murray, which is a little scary if you're the team trading for him, just given he's a RFA. And it's like, are you paying for Matt Murray's history of 2 cups, or are you paying for the Matt Murray that was $8.99 this year and lost his starting job in the playoffs? So,
do you think Carolina could be an option for Matt Murray?
Carolina is a better option to trade for Kemper. Just given that they have Reimer at $800,000 and they could just swap them and save Arizona some money. It could be an option, but I don't know with Matt Murray. Like, it's tough. Like, you've seen what happened in this a little different, but in LA, where you pay like a guy like Dustin Brown because he won you 2 cups, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh.
But you have to pay him for what they've done. It's like Lucic. Like, you have to. There's no other option. You've got a 26-year-old goaltender who has a .919 lifetime save percentage, and he's got 2 Stanley Cups. You know, you can't just be like, oh, take $2 million. Like, no one in their right mind is going to be like, oh, sure, whatever, take it. Like, no, they know they can get more.
Yeah, but if you're Carolina, you're like, you didn't want us those cups, like, here's the number. So that's interesting. Winnipeg seems to be not sold on trading a winger, but Laine and Ehlers' names are out there, which they keep making like the Solani comparison to Laine, where they're like, oh, you traded a Finnish winger before, but I don't know. There's something up with him.
Yeah, I mean, how funny would it be to see Laine end up in like Edmonton or something? But like, I could just see them just spending a bunch of money on another forward. I don't know, like who really has a few people have said, oh, Philly, they need a pure goal scorer. Is Laine the answer to that? I don't know. Like, I just don't know how many systems that guy really fits into.
No, like Carolina or like the Islanders maybe, but like if he goes to the Islanders, he's a 15-goal scorer.
Yeah. Who else do you got?
Like Max Domi is like, they're like, a lot of these guys are just RFAs. Like Max Domi changed agents, and I mean, I think there's been talks of Montreal, but he seems set on leaving. And then Ekman Larson, like, who do you see eating $8.25 million?
The Oilers.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I honestly do. I think that Ken Holland knows that there is a demand for a true number one in Edmonton, and if that means getting rid of a Darnell Nurse, a Larson, a Clefbaum, a good prospect, and a draft pick, there's no denying that you have to do it. Like, if you have a chance to bring in Oliver Ekman-Larsson, you find a way, even if that means that 5 years down the road, it might cost you a little bit in, future considerations. Like, they've got so many D prospects, they've got draft picks, they've got a couple of D-men who do have high-ish cap hits, but not too crazy, like they're around that $4-5 million range. I don't know. I just feel like that's probably a route that could be honestly or seriously explored. Also, I think that the Oilers go after Jimmy Howard. I think that they try to get him at a reasonable deal, and they probably end up parting ways with Mike Smith. Although I don't know if that's a better choice, but I just see that happening.
What did you think of Nicholson's comments where he's like, we're not really going to make any changes? Do you think that was just kind of lip service?
Yeah, I don't know why they're asking him about that. I don't know. That's it's probably not my thing to go on. Okay, we got like 30 seconds here. Anyone else you got in mind?
No, like, if the Leafs trading Freddie Anderson literally doesn't really make sense. Like, he's your number one goalie. He's one of the better goalies in the league. And, like, how are you going to upgrade that position? So that didn't make sense. I think that there's, like, just listening to Elliot Friedman, he said that there's guys out there that would shock people that they're being talked about, but there might be moves, so it'll be fun.
I hope there's moves, and honestly, like, I feel like the times we're in are going to lead to that, where there's a lot of teams who don't want to be cap teams at all, so I think it could be interesting, but end of the day, we're going to find out, and hopefully it is next month. Adam, buddy, thanks as always. Appreciate the insight. We're going to talk to you after Game 2.
All right, thanks, man. See ya.
Adam Urban-Trout, right there, our insider from Saskatchewan. Quick break, we're going to come back. Kevin Woodley, In Goal Magazine, Canucks writer for NHL.com. This is World Hockey Report, coming to you live, 12-ounce sports, Zingo TV, channel 761.
Did a lot of great things before I arrived as the brand owner. And one of the things they did incredibly well was create this carbon fiber skate. There were some perceived deficiencies from my end, aesthetically and maybe even functionally. The comfort roll edge up on top, softening that material, changing the interior liner to make it a better performing and faster drying liner. We worked to make the skate function better as well by changing the carbon fiber to a Japanese grade carbon fiber that actually relieved about 30% of the carbon fiber weight of the skate. So we added an increase in not only the performance of the skate because of making it lighter, but we are actually getting more flex in the skate because of the quality of the carbon fiber that we altered out.
Try on a pair of skates. The proof is in the pudding. I mean, you pick this product up, it's as good, if not better, than any of the top end product that's out there in the marketplace.
The Mercury skate became incredibly comfortable, and it became more durable, and it also performed better by being able to interact with the foot a lot better through the skating stride. Verbero is living proof of what a skate should cost, a high-end skate with the most advanced materials and construction, right? So if people understand that this is what a skate should cost, eventually they should understand that they shouldn't buy the competitor's skate.
Hold the mask, pinch the nose, gives you a nice fresh air vent, covers the whole chin, or if you're gonna go get a haircut, and wrap it around your neck, like so.
Throw Talk Report Live, Cody Jansen with you here on 12-ounce Sports Lingo TV, channel 761, Monday, September 21st. How's it going? Connect with us on Twitter anytime at World Hockey RPT. We're on Facebook as well, World Hockey Report. Now, we already know you're going to be watching the games from home. You got to get on board with the official drink of the Cup Final. Refreshingly different cocoa vodka and rum combines real natural coconut water from the Philippines, triple distilled vodka or smooth Puerto Rican white rum, and a splash of sparkling water. Cocoa vodka and rum started by two Canadians with a plan. Come up with a healthier summer drink that's made with quality ingredients. Ditch those bland seltzer waters no one actually likes and opt out of the beer bloat. Cocoa vodka, cocoa rum, absolutely a vacation in a can. Enjoy cocoa vodka and rum today. The original refreshing vacation in a can. Check them out. EnjoyCocoa.com. That's EnjoyCocoa.com. Pleased to be joined now, the 10D man himself from In Goal Magazine, NHL.com, Kevin Woodley, making time for us this morning. And Kevin, obviously, it was crazy. I mean, when you get 3 of the 4 goalies in the conference finals that are Russian, I really wanted to break into one, but obviously one stood out above the rest, and that's Anton Khudobin. I mean, he's got a style unlike anyone else. And with all the Tim Thomas comparisons, it takes me back to about 9 years ago when people were talking about Tim Thomas and how shooting on him was so different than shooting on a regular butterfly style goaltender. From your perspective, are you seeing similar things with Khudobin where maybe his unconventional or uncommon style is leading to some of his success?
There's an element of unpredictability, I think, is how I would put it in his game, Cody, and it's something I've talked with him about in the past. Interestingly enough, in the last round against Vegas, I saw it, like Robin Lehner sort of has some of the same qualities, plays a little more butterfly style within the crease. But when it comes to like an open look where a shooter's got a good open look, time and space, like Robin, like Khudobin, will be aggressive. He won't default to the butterfly. He'll make a patient save where he'll drop one pad, maybe keep the glove side leg up high, what we call a half butterfly save. Something Henrik Lundqvist is sort of famous for and excellent at. And I think you're seeing in the NHL and in these playoffs the importance of that, at least some element of unpredictability. Guys that look the same can therefore be beat the same, right? The same spots. And I think the spots you normally look for as a shooter
maybe a little different on Anton Hudobin. And to be honest, sometimes they're different from one sequence to the next, because he will go on pure reads and instinct and play a little outside the box, kind of like a Tim Thomas, play a little more aggressively and open looks, and something Leitner does too. Beyond that, though, like, it is interesting. Don't lose sight. There isn't, a really strong. I talked to Bob Essens about this last week. Obviously, the comparisons were being made, and we contributed to them with the Hockey Night thing. That Scott Oak talked about after talking to him about the comparisons to Tim Thomas, and Bob, of course, coached them both in Boston. And for all the focus on the unconventional and all the focus on the battle level, and rightly so, those are the saves that make the highlight reels, but they're also the separators. That, they're on second and third chance opportunities a lot of the times, and Timmy used to talk about that as well. That's where he went outside the box, rather than just staying over his knees in a butterfly. He'd battle. He called it the battle fly. And Dobie's the same way. And so what we tend to lose sight of is, there is a really strong foundational, fundamental, technical element to his game as well. Like, Hudobin has modern post play in terms of things like reverse VH and techniques that all goalies use. But he doesn't revert to it by default, and often never does so prematurely. And that's where the difference is. The patience on the skates. We think of guys as being technically sound. To me, a big part of that is skating, and Hudobin's skating and lateral edge work and ability to beat plays and get to spots, and get to them in aggressive positions and get there first and establish that position. Like, those are foundational technical elements that he excels at, and that have allowed him to have success at, he's listed at 5'11", but I think that might be generous, but to have that success as an under 6 foot goaltender.
That's what I was going to also bring up, because you kind of mentioned it. Is there any goalie in the game more mobile than Anton Hudobin? Because there's times where you'll see him 2 feet out of the crease, and there's other times where he'll sit right back in his net because he's got a good angle at a point shot, and he's going to make that save. Like, he can play at all different angles, I find, and I attribute that to his skating, his movement. It's second to none.
Yeah, it's definitely up there. And that was something that Bob talked about as well. Lessons I talked about how Tim had great hands, but he thought that Hudobin was a better skater, point A to point B. He got there faster. And, it's interesting, though. Like Vasilevsky on the other end of the ice is as mobile as they come in the NHL. But he's going to move more often from his knees. He's going to explode off his posts and things like that. What really separates Hudobin, and again, it needs to because of his size and stature, is that ability to do everything on his skates, to not default to his knees as often as some guys do, to make a shuffle instead of a slide on a lateral play and get there and get set. That to me is the separator for him. It's at an elite level, and I know a lot of people like to point at this as, I don't know, one-hit wonders probably. I don't know if that's even a phrase people are using, but like, at the end of the day, this guy's got a .919 career save percentage. Roberto Luongo has a .919 career save percentage, and we're getting ready to put him in the Hall of Fame. He had a .930 this season. Like, this isn't quite as out of nowhere as a lot of people are making it, but the opportunity is kind of what he's had to wait for, despite having some of that success in the past, and he's making the most of it. Good for him.
Now, with Andrei Vasilevsky, on the other hand, and I don't have a vast pro hockey career. I mean, my cup of coffee lasted in a time frame of you could watch a couple of movies and you'd skip my career. But, okay, so for Vasilevsky, and from a goalie's perspective, if I'm seeing 20 shots a game or less at times, it's a lot tougher to get into a rhythm. It's a lot tougher to have a good feel for the puck. And I get it, at the NHL level, these guys are all true professionals. But there has to be something said, right, that you can't get comfortable. And he made a couple of uncomfortable saves. He let in a couple of uncomfortable goals that just aren't his style. Like, he's a better goalie than letting in some of those squeakers. How much does Tampa's style, or more so lack of Dallas's style, offensive style, hurt his play where he can't get into a rhythm? Because that's where I find his biggest thing is.
Yeah, no, it's actually a good point. I hadn't really looked at his numbers, sort of whether they get, in some ways, all goalies' numbers get better when they're busier, right? There's just more shots.
Yeah.
Usually on nights where there's more shots, a lot of them are sort of what we call the 99%ers from the outside that can really pad your numbers. I haven't looked, to be honest, at Vasilevsky's, what's he like facing 30 or more? What's he like facing 25 or less? I do think that, it affects different goalies differently, to be honest. Some goalies got to stay busy to be good. And quite often it depends on how much of a timing and rhythm goalie they are. Like, is there a lot of movement in their game? Do they need that feel to feel good about things? They need to feel pucks. Do they need to be busy? It kind of varies for a lot of guys. And I got to be honest, I've never seen Vasilevsky as a guy who relies overly on it. Like, he's got a really strong technical foundation. Obviously, he's one of, if not the best goaltenders in the NHL. Even if this season, I would argue, actually probably should have been just outside of Vezina finalists, as opposed to being a Vezina finalist. He's just got elite skills, but a strong enough technical foundation that he doesn't rely on skill too much. And that, to me, that's the separator. When you're not behind a team that lets you see a lot of shots, when they don't keep you busy enough to find your rhythm, is can you go to your technical foundation and not be as reliant on timing and those types of elements? And Vasilevsky certainly has that. But whether he's playing well or not, I think for all the focus on Hudobin, people might be missing the fact that Vasilevsky actually has better numbers to this point. There is a fair bit of movement in his game too. You can catch him moving. For a goalie as quick as he is, we talked about Hudobin beating plays to spots on his skates. As quick and as powerful as Vasilevsky is, and like his end range power, talking to the goalie coaches that used to work with him in the offseason, is just off the charts. The way he's able to move, even from extended positions, is one of his separators. But he can get caught moving. Like, he has a tendency to
overplay shooters
as plays. Yeah, well, just still be moving. It's not even so much sometimes overplaying, but and it's not always east-west on an east-west play. Sometimes he plays up. I kind of use the line on his tippy toes almost. It feels like he gets really high to look over traffic. We've seen that, and it's almost when he's moving, there's a lot of up and down to his game. Like, one of the things that makes Carey Price is when he moves, he maintains everything is sort of level. And allows him to arrive set and square and not have to settle into a save stance. He gets there and he's ready to execute. Vasi has a tendency to be a lot of more up and down in his movement laterally, and it just leaves him slightly more vulnerable to getting caught moving. We saw it on the goal that went under his glove side arm the other day, and that's a tough play because rebound is easier for a goalie than a block in the slot that goes right back to the guy. Because when it's a rebound, as a goalie, I know where it's going. When it hits a guy in front of me, I didn't feel that.
100%.
Sometimes I didn't see it. I have no idea where it's going. But I do find that there's a case where he pops back up, and you want to from that distance, and he just kind of gets caught in that transition. So I'm not even sure I blame him on that one. But when you analyze the numbers and you break down the stats, it's one of the reasons I figured that Dallas needs to look to shoot against the grain on him. It's something the Islanders for sure were trying to do. Scored 5 of their 11 goals against the grain in the Eastern Conference Final. To me, that's a sign of a goalie who does at times get caught moving, and you can exploit that in that manner.
Wow. Okay, no, that's interesting for sure. Kevin Woodley, our guest here, In Goal Magazine, NHL.com. Now, I wanted to dive into some of the gear stuff, but we are running up against the clock here. I appreciate you taking the time. Everything yesterday on our timeline was talking about Askarov, and I got to get your thoughts on this kid because I've tried to watch as much of him as possible, but I'd really like to know, I mean, from what you've seen of him, from what you've heard of him, like what should we be expecting?
This is an interesting one. I'm trying to dig in on it right now.
Yeah, I know. I threw you a total curveball.
When I'm watching, my problem is I really only focus on NHL goaltenders. So all of a sudden you ask me to watch a kid who's just basically turned 18, and my comparison isn't to other 18-year-olds. I'm comparing to what I think has success at the highest level of the sport, the NHL. And so that's the caveat I like to throw. The other thing is I've only got a chance to watch video clips. I haven't seen them live. I haven't got a chance to watch an entire game. So that's a reason I'm not a prospect guy. I'm not a goalie scout. I want to make sure people know that. He moves, especially along the ice. His down game and his lateral movement might be as good as anyone in the National Hockey League right now. Like, it's it's exceptional. Like
It's very much like
really
Vasilevsky how he moves
exceptional.
on his pads.
Yeah, it is really that good. And so you automatically see a skill set like that, and you're like, wow, like this guy's going to play in the NHL just because of that movement. But above that, and that's been widely praised, there are elements that I see that I don't want to say worrisome, but will need to develop to the National Hockey League level, and I haven't frankly seen them discussed much elsewhere. Like, I feel like there's a rigidness above that base in terms of, like, he makes a lot of, like, he's a body goaltender as opposed to a limb goaltender. And that's not a bad thing. We want pucks to hit us in the chest. They don't go through our chest, but they do miss our glove every once in a while. We want to get set and square to it. But this wave of Russian goaltenders, a lot of them have thrived because they had so much great instinct and skill at a young age, and then they added the technique later. And I wonder if he's the start of a transition to the other way, where they've got a lot more coaching now, and they've been praised for it, and rightly so. But has the coaching, Anton Hudobin ironically told me this, he goes back every summer, and he's like, he feels like the coaching's starting to get too technical at too young an age. Goalies playing from their knees at the age of 10. He's like, everybody wants to be Bob. And as he said in a perfect Hudobin accent, you can't all be Bob, don't all be Bob, be you. And when I watch a scare-off, I see a lot of Bob in the movement. And so that's not a bad thing. Bob's a two-time Vezina winner. But I wonder if he's the start of a transition to, where we look at these goalies as being technical first as opposed to skill and instinct first. And that comes with an upside limit, or can come with an upside limit. And so when I watch him kick out pucks off his pads rather than using his stick to steer them into the corner, and because his butterfly is so wide, all those pucks end up out in front of him, which, hey, makes for easy second saves, but eventually, not controlling rebounds better can cost you at the highest levels. When I watch pucks, to the corners that aren't controlled with the hands as dynamically, it feels wrong to have any criticism because he's incredible, and he just turned 18. Like, he might be the best prospect in so many ways that I've seen in like as long as I can remember, and yet I keep thinking of what Dobie said to me a year ago about that, and I see some of that in his game, and I wonder about those second chances. I wonder about the fact that he doesn't seem to steer much into the corner with a stick. He kicks it out with the pad, and I wonder if those are things that I think they'll need to be fixed. I don't know that they'll be a problem, but they at least plant that little scratch of doubt in the back of the mind. And yet, as I said at the beginning, maybe every 18-year-old is like that. Maybe a lot of them, that's just the way they play. Maybe I'm just watching clips on games where his stick isn't as active. So, I don't watch him enough to be a definitive voice by any means. There's a reason he has as much praise as he does. Like I said, he could be in the NHL right now, and I think his down game and movement would be among the best in the league. But there are still some other elements you need to have to succeed at the NHL, and a couple of them, and maybe this is just total picking nits, like to the nth degree, and maybe I'm just being too contrarian, but a couple of them I haven't even seen talked about anywhere, and they jumped out to me. And I know they jumped out to a couple of other NHL goalie coaches I've talked to as well, so it's not just me.
Totally fair. Kevin, hey man, I really appreciate your time. You're the best. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Kevin Woodley there, In Goal Magazine, writer for NHL.com as well. What great insight. And I really want to, I know we're running up against the clock here, but I had to talk about Askarov. I've seen so much on him. I got to get Kevin's opinion. So I really appreciate him taking the time, giving us his insight on that as well. Where else do we find a righty goaltender who's been a stud, though? And that's my biggest concern, is they've struggled. I mean, looking back, a goalie with success, I would say as a major success, Roman Turek. I guess he did win a Stanley Cup 1999 with Dallas. But other than that, you got DiPietro. He was a high pick. Steve Mason, Jose Theodore, Thomas Vokoun, Hiller. You can go back, Barrasso, Fear. Times have obviously changed, and in this new wave of goaltending, righties seem to struggle. I don't know. Are we going to see that trend continue, or are we not? Hey, let us know anytime. We're on Twitter at World Hockey RPT, Facebook, World Hockey Report. Another great guest lined up, Eric Gillenson, Lightning Insider. Coming up, we got Game 2 tonight. Stars, Tampa. Stay with us. Back after the break.
Verbero did a lot of great things before I arrived as the brand owner. And one of the things they did incredibly well was create this carbon fiber skate. There were some perceived deficiencies from my end, aesthetically and maybe even functionally. The comfort roll edge up on top, softening that material, changing the interior liner to make it a better performing and faster drying liner. We worked to make the skate function better as well by changing the carbon fiber to a Japanese grade carbon fiber that actually relieved about 30% of the carbon fiber weight of the skate. So we added an increase in not only the performance of the skate because of making it lighter, but we are actually getting more flex in the skate because of the quality of the carbon fiber that we altered out.
Try on a pair of skates. The proof is in the pudding. I mean, you pick this product up, it's as good, if not better, than any of the top end product that's out there in the marketplace.
The Mercury skate became incredibly comfortable, and it became more durable, and it also performed better by being able to interact with the foot a lot better through the skating stride. Verbero is living proof of what a skate should cost, a high-end skate with the most advanced materials and construction, right? So if people understand that this is what a skate should cost, eventually they should understand that they shouldn't buy the competitor's skate.
Pull the mask, pinch the nose, gives you a nice fresh air vent, covers the whole chin, or if you're gonna go get a haircut, then wrap it around your neck, like so.
Talk Sport Live, Cody Jansen with you here Monday morning. How are you? Hit us up on Twitter anytime at World Hockey RPT. And you guys already know, if you want to keep your drinks cold this summer, I know summer's almost over, but hey, there's still some nice weather to be had. It's time to ditch that traditional koozie. 2D Wrap is the universal drink insulator. Fits any beverage, hot or cold, made in Canada. 2D Wrap's made with military-grade neoprene for the highest quality product possible. Strong and durable. 2D Wrap keeps your drink hot or cold for hours on. And check them out today at 2dwrap.com. That's TUDIWrap.com for the best drink accessory in the game. Now coming us from the Great South, Eric Erlandson, LightningInsider.com, spent 15 years at the Tampa Tribune covering the Bolts, also has a podcast, Lightning Insider. Go check him out. Eric, thank you so much for taking time this morning, and I want to dive right into it because we got Game 2 tonight. I mean, is the main concern for Tampa right now the rest factor? Like, playing every other night obviously sucks to begin with, but you're playing every other night against tough defensive teams. That's a hard takeaway when you're playing against the Islanders, who don't take you lightly, and now you got the Stars, who are very similar and almost even more mean on the back end.
There's no doubt. You know, I understand in some ways why the league is trying to rush through this. It's, 60 some odd days into this return to play, and we're finally here at the Stanley Cup final. But, you know, like you mentioned it, like those games against the Islanders were absolutely gut-wrenching. You know, they are mentally draining, especially the last two games when you consider they go to double overtime with a chance to clinch a spot in the Stanley Cup final and they lose. And then you have to go again in Game 6 and play another overtime game. They're just mentally draining. So the fatigue factor to me is more mental than physical. I think from a physical aspect, I think, you know, that with the time off that all these players had from March until they got back to training camps in July, you know, they're not exerted too much physically, even in a playoff situation like this. But it's the mental aspect. You mentioned it. The Islanders will grind you down. They make you wait, and they are patient as hell until they wait for an opportunity to strike, and they tend to take advantage of it. Go back to the first round series against Columbus. Columbus was a bear to play against. They are so tightly compacted in their own end. They don't give up much. They make it hard on you, and they did. And you had the 5 overtime game, of course, the epic start to the playoffs between
Crazy.
Columbus and Tampa Bay there. So I just think that having to start, you clinch on Thursday, and then you have to turn around on Saturday. You have media responsibilities on Friday. Dallas definitely had the upper hand in there. So I think the fatigue factor definitely came into play for Game 1. I don't see it being as much as a situation tonight because most of the mistakes that Tampa Bay made in Game 1, they were more mental than physical.
I totally agree with that. And honestly, I know that a 4-1 game and how Tampa outplayed Dallas for the most part, at least the second half of the game, it's not exactly comparable to Game 1 between the Bolts and the Islanders, but I almost look at it on the same scale where the Isles were coming off of a tough series against Philly for them. Like, it was a tough series, and they just got caught flat-footed almost. Like, you know, they just weren't ready, prepared, they were tired. It happens. I see it now as it's a fresh slate. You know, everyone's on the same page. Tampa knows what to expect in Game 2, as does Dallas as well. And one of the question marks, though, Steven Stamkos. This has been a hot topic here, Eric. Is, you know, if he's healthy enough to come back, is he worth it to be that 12th forward if you mainly just see him on the power play? And a reason I bring that up as well is because their power play struggled. You know, if you're sitting in John Cooper's shoes right now, standing in them, I guess. Are you bringing Stamkos back if you can, just for those power play, maybe some leadership responsibilities?
If he's healthy, he plays. That's my opinion on it. I think he's close. He's, you know, we've seen some videos that the league and the team has released here in the last number of days of him skating and getting back. Is he going to be in perfect game shape if he comes back? No. I mean, he hasn't played a game since February, and you know, his team is now 18 games deep into the postseason, and they're in a different mode. There's no doubt about it. But he is a professional athlete. He knows his body so well. He understands what it's going to take to play. If he can go out there, you know, this is not the same as it was in 2016. You remember he missed most of that playoff season with the blood clot issue. He was on the blood thinners, so he wasn't allowed to play, and he came back and played Game 7 against Pittsburgh. I think this is a little different situation because everybody kind of went through a long pause to get here. So it's only an 18-game head start for the rest of the team. It's not a huge gap. But he can change the dynamic of a series if he comes in and can make an impact. And at the worst case scenario is he plays some fourth line minutes and he plays out on the power play and can get that shot off. And you know, the power play has struggled. You look at it, it's kind of skewed too a little bit because they have 8 power play goals since the actual playoffs began. 6 of those came in 2 games. That was the 7-1 blowout to the Bruins and the 8-2 game against the Islanders to open the Eastern Conference Finals. Besides that, they've got 2 power play goals in 16 games. That's not good enough for this team, especially with the talent that they do have. If he can make an impact and he can make a difference on the power play alone, it could easily change the tide in a series like this that we figure is going to be more tightly contested than Game 1 was.
Now, I'm going to throw a curveball at you. We were going to get to some of those depth guys like Maroon and Coleman, but I was just talking with Kevin Woodley from In Goal Magazine, NHL.com, and, you know, we had a good conversation about Vasilevsky, too, and how, obviously, Game 1 wasn't his finest game. I mean, he's not going to go home and brag about that one. But is there something to be said about how Dallas plays a similar, really defensive lockdown style to the Isles, except Dallas's offense has that ability to capitalize on their chances? They're a lot more threatening than the Isles. Is there some concern in that sense where Dallas might get 3 shots a period, but there could be 3 grade A scoring chances, and as a goaltender, that's tough. So is there some concern there from a Tampa perspective where, you know, they really have to lock down that middle of the ice, better than they even did in Game 1?
Well, what you really have to be careful with is Dallas's counter. And, you know, the Islanders were similar in this way, but Dallas has Heiskanen and Klingberg on the back end. And the way that they can counter, even Esa Lindell can move the puck out of the zone really well. That's the area that the Islanders have. They don't have what Dallas has in that ability. So Tampa Bay has to be really disciplined. They've done a really good job throughout this postseason of being a more patient team, a more disciplined team where they don't cheat offense for defense. Like, they don't sacrifice what they're doing defensively to try and steal that goal, right? That's something they've been guilty of in past playoffs, especially last year, what happened to them against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So it is a concern for sure because Dallas has more horses, so to speak, than the Islanders had, and certainly more than Columbus had. So Tampa Bay is prepared for the type of defensive style that Dallas plays. But Dallas has a little bit more offensive capabilities on the counterattack if you let them do it. So it is definitely something that they have to be acutely aware of.
How big of an impact have some of those depth additions been, though? I mean, when I think of Maroon, Coleman, Gaudreau, I think that that's almost changed the dynamic, not completely of Tampa's team, but they've really, I guess, well-rounded out the roster, if you ask me, compared to any of their playoff runs, even, I mean, against Chicago there. Like, you know, any year, this is what they've been missing, in my mind. And from your perspective, watching all the games closely, how helpful have those three been?
They've been huge, and I'll throw Zach Bogosian in there too,
yes,
because he was a late addition as well. First of all, it's changed the personality of their lineup, right? Like they're a team that the last few years have been based on speed, skill, and hockey IQ. They didn't necessarily have the size, especially up front. They got some size in the back end. You know, Braden Colbert, even though he hasn't been a part necessarily of this playoff run, just a couple of games, but he had size the last couple of years. And you know, Victor Hedman at 6'6", Ryan McDonough at 6'3". They've had the size on the back end, not up front. Well, now you get a little bit of size on up front. Pat Maroon certainly brings that. You know, Blake Coleman, even though he's not necessarily big, he plays a big style. I think Barclay Goodrow's the same way. He's 6'1". I mean, I was just thinking about this in the last couple of days, the impact that all of those guys have made at some point during this playoff run. Okay, Barclay Goodrow, his forecheck in Game 1 against Columbus allowed Tampa Bay to tie the game in the opening shift of the third period. He set up Anthony Cirelli's game winner in Game 6 against the Islanders to clinch a berth in the Stanley Cup Final. Pat Maroon set up Andre Palat's overtime game winner in Game 2 against Boston that, you know, turned around a potential 0-2 hole into a 1-1 game. Blake Coleman had that Superman goal he had in Game 2 against the Bruins, set up by Zach Bogosian, who did his own Superman impersonation trying to get the pass over to him. So they've all made a huge impact in some capacity. But the biggest area that they've done, you hear the phrase a lot, hard to play against. Well, especially with the line that has Yanni Goudreau, and Coleman on it, they have been very hard to play against. There's a reason John Cooper has their name on the starting lineup almost every single game, almost every single period, because that line sets the tone. And that's something that necessarily they didn't have on a consistent basis in playoff years past. And all of those additions have made some sort of a huge impact in this playoffs.
Eric Erlandson, my guest, podcast host, writer, lightninginsider.com. Go check him out. I got to ask you one more before I let you go here. And I know you work, you deal with Bolts fans every single day. We're way up here in the Great White North, so I don't have exactly a sense of what they've got here. But every time I say, hey, Braden Point's the one who stirs the drink, I truly feel that Braden Point is their most impactful player on a basis. And then we get hate saying, oh, you're not giving Kucherov the respect. Then when Kucherov has a good game, we say, oh, Kucherov was good. I mean, obviously he's a guy who can put up points, but they need more than point. And we just get hated on for everything. I mean, are Bolts fans this intense? And I wish that they would get playoffs. And honestly, I'm against the playoffs, or the Bolts from 2004 when they beat the Flames, because I mean, we're close to Calgary up here. But like, how crazy is this fan base getting? Because they got to be all behind this team. I've never seen Tampa fans this active on social media, this passionate about their team. This is awesome for hockey in the South, isn't it?
Oh, it is. There's no doubt. I mean, it's a very, very passionate fan base down here.
That we found out.
The successes that they've had since, really since 2011, an unexpected run of the Eastern Conference Finals, and then 15 they're in the finals, and 16 they're in the conference finals. So they've had some runs of success. It hasn't reached the ultimate goal, but you think of the number of fans that they brought in. I even think back to 2004. That was a generation of hockey fans born here in the South and in the Tampa market, and it's really turned into, a great model for a quote-unquote non-traditional market. And because of that success, it's fueled the passion of the fan base. And, they live and die with their team. I've seen it. Boy, you should have seen the comments, reaction last year after they lost to Columbus, and how hurt they were, right? They were hurt. A lot of people were hurt by what happened last year. And now you have what the team is going through this year, what we're all going through in dealing with the COVID situation, to have hockey back and to see their team in the Stanley Cup Final. And I'll say this to the fans who are trying to debate Kucherov for Point, that should be a great debate. It shouldn't be one or the other. You have two great players that you can debate on a nightly basis which one is better. Kucherov, the MVP after a 128-point season, and then you see the way Braden Point has matured and really, I agree with you in this aspect. He drives that line now. You couldn't say that necessarily last year, but he is the guy who drives it. Just look at how much he commands the puck in this postseason. He wants it on his stick. He wants to be the guy generating the play up the ice. And when you've got a player like Kucherov on your wing with you, it's a dynamic duo. It shouldn't be one's greater than the other. They're both great.
Oh, and then you've also got Hedman and Vasilevsky. Ever heard of them? They're not bad either. Eric, man, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. That was awesome insight. I really appreciate that. Enjoy Game 2 tonight.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Eric Erlinson right there, Lightning Insider. Go check him out, podcast host as well, lightninginsider.com. Oh, we just lost the video there. Wrong button. It happens. Alrighty, let's wrap this up. A little bit of extra NHL news for you. I thought this was pretty cool. The Fu brothers reunited in Kunlun. And I know that they've got a lawsuit. I know we rip on the KHL all the time, but it's pretty cool. Spencer and Parker Fu brothers. Both their NHL rights still in Calgary, Chicago, respectively, but they're going to be playing together in the KHL. I thought that was pretty cool. Also, World Hockey Report Challenge. OT Challenge update, hats going out. Those are the final hats too. I mean, hey, so either if we're getting overtime, we're going to order in more hats or shirts. Maybe we'll just let you pick something off the store. Maybe we'll hook you up with a hoodie. I don't know. Whatever. Let's just hope you get one more overtime. Maybe a Game 7 Stanley Cup overtime. Yeah, I would be all in for that. Alright, hey, of course, anytime, hit us up on Twitter at World Hockey RPT. Anything that's on your mind, our What's Nutrition and Performance question of the day. Who is going to be the game breaker tonight? Oh man, I already said I think it's Vasilevsky, and I think that if he holds them to, less than 2, they're gonna win. I'm very confident in that. Doug goes with Kucherov. Needs to have a big game for Tampa Bay to win. I agree. Kucherov and Point, as Adam Rumtrout said to start off the show, Point being a -3 in Game 1. You can't have that. I think they would agree with that as well. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be awesome. We got Game 2. We got Stanley Cup Finals. That's coming up tonight. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Appreciate our guests, Adam Urban-Trout, Kevin Woodley, Eric Erlinson. For Cody James and the 12-ounce sports team, Zingo TV, channel 761. Of course, thanks to all of our great sponsors, 2D Ramp, Tub Master, Barrel Hockey, Coco Vodka, Coco Rum, MyBookie.ag, promo code 12OZ Sports. That's going to do it. It's another great show. Thank you all for tuning in, for contributing. Always makes it more enjoyable when you get this. Glenn's on next. 12-ounce sports, Zingo TV, Cody Jansen. We'll talk to you on Friday.